everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Alexa and I'm a first year PA student at McMaster University in Ontario, Canada. In this video, I'm going to be talking all about how I got into PA school in Canada. We'll talk a little bit about my undergraduate background, academic background, my extracurricular, things that I did that I think might have helped optimize my application to hopefully help you guys out if you are considering applying in the future or if you're applying this cycle. I know it's become extremely competitive to get into PA school in Canada. I think the year that I applied, which was for 2021 admission, McMaster had like a 2% acceptance rate. It's gotten pretty competitive, so I've been getting a lot of questions about things that I did that I think might have helped. But I would just make a video addressing all of those questions. If you guys are interested in learning a little bit more, then just keep watching. Okay, so I'm gonna do this Q&A style just to keep everything really straightforward and simple, easy to follow. I have my little iPad here with a bunch of questions. So the first question is, what is my educational background? I did a 4-year undergraduate degree at the University of Toronto. I started in September of 2016 and I finished in April of 2020. I did my honors Bachelor of Science, did a double major in biology for health sciences and psychology. I also minored in chemistry. I know I packed a lot in there. That sounds like a lot, but I was always a nerd. I still am. I learned a lot and I think it was really valuable. After I graduated, I wound up taking a gap year, and during that gap year, I actually worked for a company very similar to Khan Academy. I made educational videos about different university topics, but my job was completely online. I did miss getting like human interaction every day and having somewhere else to go other than my desk and my like daily runs to Tim Hortons. How Canadian of me. But yeah, I love that job. Didn't really like the online part. That year was actually the same year that I was applying to PA school. I applied to PA school in January of 2021. I was accepted in May of 2021, and then I ended up starting in September of 2021. So that's kind of the timeline. How old was I when I applied? I applied in January of 2021, so at that point I was 22. I turned 23 in May, and I actually got my acceptance a few days after my birthday. So I was accepted when I turned 23, and then I started when I was 23. So the next question is, what was my GPA? I applied to the 2 Ontario PA programs, which was McMaster and UofT. They also have another PA program in Manitoba, but I didn't end up applying to that one. For the 2 Ontario programs, they calculate your GPA using something called the OMSA scale. Basically, it's the scale where they convert all of the applicants' GPAs into one like uniform scale so that they can compare them. Just because different undergraduate institutions have different ways of assessing their students' GPA, it just kind of makes it all uniform and easy for the program to compare and assess. I actually didn't convert my GPA to the OMSA scale when I applied. I just kind of went for it. I knew I wasn't like teetering around the minimum requirement. I think the minimum requirement for McMaster at the time was 3.0. I'm not sure if it's still the same. In undergrad, my main objective was to keep my GPA high, so I knew it wasn't going to be a weak spot on my application, so I didn't wind up calculating it. But I would say as long as you meet their minimum GPA requirement, you should definitely submit an application. So the next question is, how many healthcare experience hours did I have? When I applied, they were only required by UofT. I'm not sure if that has changed. My healthcare experience hours were from being a clinical research assistant at Sick Kids. In that role, my main responsibility was to consent pediatric cancer survivors to a study where we investigated different adverse cardiovascular outcomes associated with different chemotherapy drugs that they were treated with. That was a really cool study. My second experience for my healthcare experience hours was being a child life volunteer at Sick Kids. That role kind of revolved around playing with the kids or entertaining them, reading them books, etc., to kind of keep them comfortable during their hospital stay. In total, I had 350 healthcare experience hours. When I applied during COVID, their minimum requirement was 100 hours. However, in years before that, their minimum requirement was 910, so it did get dropped. So you just want to check the PA program website to make sure that you meet their minimum. So I actually didn't know this while I was applying, but a lot of people tended to have like thousands of hours, and that's great, but that wasn't me. And it's okay if it's not you either. As long as you meet that minimum, definitely recommend submitting an application. So the next question is, what were my extracurriculars in undergrad? So I did a lot of extracurriculars in undergrad. I was very involved, but I'll give you my top 3 in this video. The first extracurricular I'll talk about was something I did in my 3rd and my 4th year, and that was acting as something called a peer academic leader on residence at UofT. I had a cohort of around 30 students each year. They were first year students coming in to study life sciences. Guys, I loved this job. To this day, I still really miss it. So I essentially got to mentor those students in a variety of different ways. I led a lot of academic workshops to help them with content, but then I also led a bunch of workshops just talking a little bit about strategy and how to effectively study, how to study smarter, not necessarily harder. Put on a lot of events for them, like networking events with professors and grad students. Use the connections that I have to help them learn a little bit more about how to navigate the field, just kind of sharing things that I wish I knew when I was in first year. I grew really close to a lot of my students, and I still talk to a lot of them today. It was just so rewarding for me to see how much they grew, how much they have achieved, how hardworking they were, and they still are. So I really love that experience, and it's probably a big reason as to why I'm starting to make videos now, is just because I miss connecting with students, and I really want to help you guys out and see you achieve your dreams. Second thing I did that was really helpful for me was my experience as a clinical research intern, like I mentioned previously. Last thing that I did that I'll mention in this video was my chemistry ROP. ROP stands for Research Opportunity Program. I essentially spent a summer doing research in a chemistry lab. We were making these small molecule photosensitizers, which are essentially just small organic molecules that were meant to selectively target cancer cells over normal cells. I learned a lot, especially from a lot of the grad students who mentored me. It was a really great experience. How many times did I apply until I was accepted? So I applied once and I was accepted on my first shot. Where was I accepted? I applied to UofT and McMaster. I was interviewed at both, and then I was accepted to both as well. But ultimately, I did choose McMaster, which leads me to the next question. Why did I choose McMaster? I could do a whole video on kind of like the strategy and the algorithm that I went through to make this decision, because I do think it's a really important topic. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, the 2 Ontario programs train their students very differently, which is nice because you have some options in terms of where you think you want to go. But I would say there's not necessarily like a better program to go to. It's more so you need to pick the program that you feel that you're going to learn really well in and that you're going to thrive in. So for me, I felt that that was McMaster. Ultimately, it's a personal decision. The next question is, how did I prepare for the supplemental application? The supplemental application for McMaster and UofT is very different. UofT, it's more so like your cookie cutter supplemental application where they give you a bunch of questions and you write some responses, you edit them, and then you submit it by a specific deadline. Whereas McMaster is primarily video based. They'll kind of put a question on the screen, they'll automatically record you answering the question, and then that recording is sent to the program right away. Unfortunately, you don't necessarily get to see it. You can see that they're both very different. My strategy to approach both of them were very different, but again, I could do a whole video on how I did this. You do need to prepare for them a little bit differently, but I would say this is the chance to show the program who you are, what kind of skills, life lessons you've learned, and how it's going to help you be a good PA. I would say focus a little bit less on the summarizing piece, give an experience, but what's more important is what you learned from that experience. Another thing you want to make sure that you do is remember what makes you unique. So unique experiences you had, unique things about you, whatever it is, because there's going to be thousands of other applicants, and what's going to separate you from the rest of the pile is you. You are the unique part of your own application, so make sure that you remember that. But again, I could do like a full breakdown video of things that I did to tackle each sub-app. So if you guys are interested in seeing that, let me know. How did I prepare for the MMI? It requires a lot of background knowledge about health policies, current events, things like that isn't necessarily common knowledge. So that's why it's more complex. I would say my biggest tip for the MMI, and I know you've probably heard this before, is that they can ask you literally anything. So you can prepare for all of these different types of questions, which I highly recommend that you do, but you should also try answering questions that you have absolutely no background knowledge about. Practice being uncomfortable, practice answering those things that you know next to nothing about, so that if you do get really stumped on a question or you see something that you're not familiar with, you know how to articulate yourself and speak passionately, even about things that you don't necessarily know a lot about. Again, I can do a whole video on how I tackled the MMI, strategies I used, things that I did. Alright guys, so that is all. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know if this video was useful. I really want these videos to be helpful and useful for you guys. Let me know what kind of other videos you want to see in the comments below. I know it's application season. If you are applying this year, good luck. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!